Welcome to Allie's Attic, where you never know what kind of surprise you'll find in my attic. I'm your host, Allie, and today my surprise is a gentleman that has been active in the music industry for over 2 decades. And let me tell you, there's lots and lots of interesting stuff about him. Please welcome Rich Evans. Hello, Rich.
Good evening. Hello. Or good afternoon for you guys in Canada. Hello.
Yes, but it's good evening for you in the UK. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
It's nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on. I am absolutely in love with your voice, Rich. It's got that little bit of a rasp, and it's just, I love it. I can't even explain how much I love it. But yeah, you've got a great, great voice. Now, you've recorded albums of rock and blues, even punk. But the majority of your music is Americana, correct?
That's right. Yes. I mean, I think it kind of falls broadly into Americana, but yeah, that's definitely what I've been doing for the last decade or so.
Okay, now let's talk about your journey because it's been quite the journey. So, how old were you when you thought, you know what, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? I'm going to be a
Well,
musician.
yeah. I mean, I guess like many kids, I kind of started playing guitar when I was maybe 14, 15 years of age, and while everyone kind of wants to be Eric Clapton or whoever at that age, I ended up playing punk music pretty much straight away as soon as I could play three chords, and that led on to being in a punk band for sort of 2 years, and then I kind of realised that I don't know. I think you'll never meet a fan of the Damned or any of those punk bands who doesn't like Johnny Cash, and I think that they're, albeit strange bedfellows, I think that there's a definite link there, and somehow through a whole weird twists of fate, I ended up kind of playing country. I was the only kind of country guy in the UK.
You know, what it was it who did that song by Johnny Cash, Hurt? Oh, it was a punk
Um,
band kind of.
it was who was it? It's Trent Reznor, wasn't it? It's Nine Inch Nails, I
Nine
think,
Inch
that did
Nails.
it.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
who it is. That's it. See, and there again is that strange bedfellows because that's the last band I ever would have thought doing a Johnny Cash song. But yeah, I guess there is. That's bizarre. I've never
Yeah.
thought about it till you just said that. Now,
Yeah,
you,
well, that's the theory, but it seems to kind of play out. So there
yeah,
you go.
weird. Okay, so you were a member of the London-based band, the Mariachis, in the early 2000s.
That's correct. Yeah,
And you released the Like a Crown album and the Kicking Through the Cinders EP. And it was actually played in like national radio stations in the UK and the US and throughout Europe. Now, talk about who you toured with.
well, I mean, we it was a strange one really because we got the band together and didn't really expect very much from it, and there was a kind of embryonic, almost country or Americana scene in London where we were based at the time. And one thing led to another, and it was one of these things where you give a tape to someone, and you end up giving tapes and CDs to lots of the wrong people, and then eventually they kind of lead to halfway towards the right people, and we were very lucky. But we ended up putting that record out, and then the next thing you know, we were getting calls from radio stations in France and Germany and Switzerland, and so we ended up going and doing quite a lot of touring out on mainland Europe, as we call it here. It's only a short hop across the channel, I think, in Canadian distance terms. But yeah,
Just don't
um,
swim. Don't swim. Okay.
yeah, don't try.
It's cold.
And
Anyways.
we ended up playing with Bill Wyman, obviously out of the Stones. He needs no real introduction, and we played quite a lot with Joe Cocker as well, and we also played with Jimmy Cliff for quite a few shows. So they were amazing experiences. So from something that just started in a little apartment with neighbours complaining about the noise of drums to playing on some absolutely enormous stages with in front of huge festival crowds. So yeah, there were nights when it felt like we were touching the sky, and then yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful experience, really
Yeah,
enjoyable.
that is just, I mean, to even be able to say that you were on stage with those three people is just absolutely amazing. Um, Now, one of the things you talked about before we even started the interview was the name, the Mariachis. You said it wasn't a really good name for your band. It conjures like, isn't it Spanish or what are those things that those are mariachis that they shake or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the Mexican kind of well you end up having them in lots of films and stuff like that. I mean this sounds really quite disparaging, I suppose, of what is an entire genre of music. But
Mm-hmm.
I show my ignorance here. But the name itself, I didn't really know much about mariachi music, but I lived in San Diego in California for a while. I actually studied out there at UCSD, and one day the story is essentially that a friend of mine took me to something called the Over the Line tournament, which I had no idea what it was, just being a Brit overseas, and it was a topless baseball tournament, which politically correct, I don't think so, but there we go. And the winning team was the Mariachis, and so I thought, okay, well that sounds like a great name for a band. So I went back to London and eventually formed this band. We called it the Mariachis,
I'm
and
sorry.
yeah, that's the rest is kind of history, I
I'm
suppose.
still laughing about topless baseball. And it was girls playing? Women?
It was,
Ah,
yes. Like I say, not very politically correct, but
wow.
I was young. That's my excuse.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Anyway, okay, we'll get off that topic. As soon as I stop laughing about it. Okay. Well, regardless of what mariachi means, and it is great music, and it was obviously the right name because of look who you played with. Now, then you formed the Americana collective Roosevelt Bandwagon, and you released two very well received albums, including Jobless Men Keep Going. And it was a collection of songs that was highly regarded by American UK Magazine and Backroads Americana magazine, sorry, as well as a series of radio appearances and also two performances at the Maverick Festival.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a strange one because we initially it just kept growing as a band. I mean, initially myself and a lady called Jane Griffiths got together and we put on a charity show and we were just singing together. And then we ended up getting a cello player, and then a mandolin player, and then a banjo player, and then a pedal steel player, and a bass player, and all of these people who there was no. I hasten to add there was no money in this band whatsoever, but there were a whole load of people that were just very keen to come along and play music for which I will forever be grateful. But yeah, it all came together very quickly, and we ended up getting quite a lot of success in terms of festival appearances, in terms of radio shows, as you mentioned. And it was all kind of centered on Great Depression era sort of songwriting topics and literature. I mean, the Jobless Men Keep Going album title came from an old Library of Congress photograph. I think it was from like the 1930s, and the title itself of the band, Roosevelt Bandwagon, was it was something that Woody Guthrie formed. So he actually had the Roosevelt Bandwagon at one stage, which was a kind of a collective of people that went around trying to get Roosevelt re-elected for, I guess, his fourth term, kind of thing.
Oh.
So yeah, it was great fun. I mean, really kind of rustic sort of stuff, but we all made a very nice noise when we played together. Put it
Well, that's
that
wonderful.
way.
At least you gave me great memories. Um, Now, in addition, you've carved out a solo career, and it initially began with you recording alongside Nashville writer Buddy Mondlock in the late 1990s.
Yeah, that's correct. So I was living in Birmingham, Birmingham, UK, rather than Alabama at that point in time, and I had a few gigs, and I was getting booked in a few places and a few clubs and stuff like that. And I got given this one gig opening up a show for Buddy, and it was in this sort of sleazy part of town, I guess. But there was this great music club there, and I played with him, and the next thing I know, kind of 3 months later, his publishing company had flown me out to Nashville and they put me up and I was writing with him and recording with him. And that was an amazing experience. And it opened up a lot of doors and I met a lot of people as a result of it as well. So that kind of kick-started everything. And since then, on and off. It's kind of gone from strength to strength, I guess. I mean, there've been times when the music's been quite successful. There've been times when it's been less successful, but yeah, I mean, it all kind of got kick-started from him, really.
Well, what a way to kickstart it. Now, also, you were you kind of were with Stone Eagle Records, and you recorded and played alongside many U.S. musical luminaries, including great harmonica player Graham Nelson.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Graham Nelson is like one of the great harmonica players. I mean, he hasn't had as much recognition as he ought to have, but he he played alongside people like Howard Levy in the Chicago scene, and to hear him play to hear him play harmonica on stage is just it's mind blowing. I've never seen that kind of thing done with the instrument before. But yeah, I mean, Stone Eagle Records was great. They knew everyone. They also produced the Grammy nominated album by Pinetop Perkins, which is called Pinetop Perkins and Friends. That one came out, I don't know, maybe sort of 11, 12 years ago now. But yeah, going over there and recording, they had an amazing setup, and I've got some fantastic memories from the time that I spent over with those guys, and it was a privilege to play with all of them. Actually, I mean, it's just an amazing time.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, the Rich Evans Band was originally formed to play the US material live in Europe, and you recorded a large number of albums to date. One of the most notable, Circus Blues, was released in Europe on the Studio Phonics label, and it was recorded in a century-old barn in the countryside of rural France.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of these funny things where we'd got a bit of money from a kind of advance, like a very small advance, and we thought, okay, well, we could just go in and into any regular studio and play and record an album and spend it on that. But instead, we kind of went a little bit off piste, and we went on eBay, and so we ended up buying a kind of SUV, a very old SUV that just about worked, and a horse box, like a horse trailer.
Oh.
And we just loaded up all our gear with that. And I mean, it was one of these instances where someone knew someone whose parents had a farm out in south of Limoges, and we ended up driving down there and setting up in this ancient barn, which was just amazing. I mean, it was nice and cool in the middle of the summer. They had a swimming pool outside, and yeah, so we were kind of pretending to be the Rolling Stones doing Exile on Main Street, but on a budget.
That is awesome, though. I mean, the sound must have been amazing in a barn, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had a few baffles and things like that put together, but yeah, you got like the sound of the chickens outside kind of bleeding in and stuff like that. But it was great. It had this big kind of echo, and yeah, so the budget basically went on an old SUV, a horse box, and crates of wine, and that's what got us through it. So yeah, quick to record, but it worked very nicely.
Nice. Now, you've been a finalist in the International Songwriting Competition.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean it's a great competition, and it's one of these things where there's quite a big cash prize, and there's loads of gear that they throw at you. But they kind of shortlist you down to the last. I think there's a short list of 10, and so I've never won it, I hasten to add, but I've been in that top 10 a couple of times. So it's quite well recognised, and it's certainly the kind of thing that has been quite a few gigs that have come off the back of it, and some interesting people judging it as well. They normally have some fairly well known judges.
Oh, nice. Well, I mean, 1 year. If
Well,
not, it's just an honor to be
that's
nominated.
right.
Yeah. Now, your music is starting to become available on Spotify, both your solo and full band recordings, as well as Baby Dylan Records, and that's been formed to manage all of this. Now, is Baby Dylan Records yours?
It is, yeah. My first son is called Dylan, and hence the the name of the label. So Baby Dylan Records. Yeah, I mean it's a kind of a learning process, this whole thing, because of course streaming and Spotify and everything like that. I guess I'm of the old school, really, of CDs and vinyl and even cassette tapes. So
Mm-hmm.
so the sort of change and shift in ideology to streaming is something that I'm kind of still getting my head around. But yeah, all of the pretty much all of the back catalogue is coming on Baby Dylan Records through Spotify and all the rest of the streaming services. Yeah.
Nice. I know I'm still wrapping my head around all of it because, yeah, I mean, I'm older than you are. So I remember when I first started in radio, we still played records. So yeah, it's yeah, different. But I mean, the great thing about it is so many more artists get to be heard, which I mean is awesome for everybody. Um, I want to ask you a question. Now, okay, first, I'm going to talk about your songs because usually I ask you to tell me what songs we're going to play, but I want to talk about them. The Girl is a great song, and you can tell me what each of
Thank
them
you.
about. But Roll On Mississippi, I could listen to, and your voice is captivating. And like I said, it's got that rasp and it's inviting, and you could just close your eyes and just, oh, it's just, I can't even explain it. Now, who plays the harmonica on that song?
That's actually me
Oh,
playing. I play everything on that one. Yeah, it's one of these where I cheated a bit. I kind of overdubbed things in the studio. But yeah, there's all bits and pieces of stuff that's layered on there. But yeah, the harmonica and the mandolin are me at the start. So that's yeah, like I say, it's cheating. I can't play them all at the same time.
no, I don't think there's so many one-man bands out there now because I mean, technology allows you to do that. So I know a lot of people are doing it. And if you can, why not? I mean, it's saving you money hiring musicians.
Well,
Um,
that's true. Although there is nothing like playing in a room full of people with a whole batch of guys. But yeah, that one's me playing the harmonica.
well,
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It is absolutely
thank you.
beautiful. I love it. Um, now, what are both of like? Did you write both of them?
I did, yeah, yeah. So they're both my songs. I mean, "Roll on Mississippi" actually was left over from the Roosevelt bandwagon kind of sessions. Like I said, we ended up writing a whole load of, I suppose, Great Depression era style kind of themes and things like that. And so, yeah, Roll on Mississippi's got a lot of that kind of southerny Dust Bowl kind of imagery within it. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I initially kind of heard it in my head as kind of like a field holler. I mean, I used to listen when I was a kid to the Harry Smith folk anthology and all of that very very old kind of 1920s sort of field recordings. All my friends were listening to Duran Duran and stuff like that.
You're listening to, yeah.
So
Wow.
and so I originally kind of heard it as almost like a field holler or a chain gang kind of piece. And I mean, I think it would frankly have been unlistenable had I recorded it like that. So I sweetened it up, I suppose.
Well, you did very well. What is The Girl about?
So the girl is it was a song that came about after reading. It was just a piece in a magazine. I was sat there on the tube on the underground in London a while ago, and I was reading an article. It's one of the free newspapers, and you kind of leaf through. And I think there was like not a problem page exactly, but like an agony aunt or something like that. And I remember coming home and having sort of two or three lines of a verse in my mind, and it all kind of got written fairly quickly after that. Just kind of retelling this poor bloke's story about this girl that he wanted but didn't have. So
Oh, that's cool. From a magazine, writing on the tube. Um,
exactly. Well, I figure good artists steal or at least borrow.
yes, they borrow. They borrow. Don't say steal. They borrow.
Steal. Okay, steal from magazines. How's that?
Isn't that
The,
plagiarism?
the,
I
the, the
don't even
person
know.
that wrote the person that had written Into the Agony Aunt was anonymous, so
Yeah,
you
there. So
can't
it's
can't
free.
get me
Yeah,
on
you can't
that.
exactly. Both songs are great, but I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Roll on Mississippi has my heart. I absolutely love it, and I can't like I'm gonna keep talking about your voice. Even your speaking voice is just phenomenal. Now, because you've been doing this for so long and with so many different bands, and I mean, you've met and played with some amazing people. If you had any advice to give a brand new artist that was just starting out, what kind of advice would you give them, do you think, Rich?
Well, I think that the most important thing, and I do work with a couple of younger writers and younger bands, and I think the most important thing is to write your own material. I mean, I think that's so important, especially in this era of kind of talent shows and pop idol kind of things where people are all about singing other people's songs. I mean, for me, I don't think that really feeds the soul. I think you need that idea of self-expression, and so the first thing I'd say is absolutely make sure that you write your own material. And I mean, I think some of the sage words which were said to me when I was a teenager, when I was first starting out with this idea of you should take the music seriously, but not take yourself too seriously. And I think that's very important because if you act like a star or a prima donna or whoever, yeah, you may well be on your way up, but you're going to need the same people who booked you and who you've maybe been a prima donna to on the way back down as well. So I think try and treat everyone well, really. That's in the industry because people have got long memories.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to talk about the Grammys now. I wasn't going to talk about them at all, but I'm going to because what you said brings me to Bruno Mars. Um, 3 Grammys last night, but his final one for Record of the Year, he was so humble and thanked the people whose songs he sang when he was 15 years old, and talked about he was celebrating, he had a few drinks, he was having a good time. And I know the second time he won, he talked about, there's been too many ballads because I cried, I think 3 times during that Grammy show. I've never
Oh, wow,
cried.
okay.
It was just so emotional. But one of the things that stuck out was how humble he was and not a prima donna. So what you said makes total sense because it made me respect him more than I already did. So I know there are people out there that start singing and think right away they're it. And you don't want to burn bridges because like you said,
No.
long memories. And the fans will feed off of that too and not like it. I'm not going to mention any names because we all know in the industry there's prima donnas. I mean, come
Of
on.
course.
But one I liked until the prima donna started, and now don't listen to it all. So that is such good
Yeah,
advice.
yeah. I think there's, and I think the other thing is the only other thing I'd say in terms of advice is that you're not going to go straight onto playing giant stages, and even if you have played big stages, you're going to end up playing small stages again. And if only one person, even if there's only one person there that you've made a difference to on a particular evening that you're playing to, then I think it's worth it. Along with that, and you never know. I mean, I remember one time years and years ago playing a show where no one turned up. The entire band, we played the whole set, and then we walked off. And we came back on for an encore, and we still had a good night. So there you go.
There, yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what it's got to be about, right? It's got to be
I think so.
fun. I mean, if
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
fun, why are you doing it? I
That's
mean,
right.
because we all know independent artists don't make a lot of money, and it's got to be the passion and the fun. That is great advice, and I'm so glad you touched on about being a prima donna because I will jump all over that like I did because I'm a great believer in, don't be, because if I get, well, I'm going to say it anyway. If I start getting messages and people wanting to come on my show and they start acting like that, I've got lots of other people that want to come on that are awesome. Just
Absolutely,
saying, just saying.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it does. And it makes a big difference. So I'm so glad you touched on that. Now, what is coming up for you? Are you just going to keep doing what you're doing, or are there any new things happening?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much I'm kind of keeping on doing what I'm doing. I'm still doing plenty of writing, and I will be doing more recording. There's a new record in the offing that I'm kind of writing at the present moment in time. I think it's going to be fairly stripped down, um, recorded mainly live. I've got a few shows coming up, opening up for a few fairly decent, as in fairly big artists. No one that's quite on the level of some of those mentioned before yet, but I'm looking forward to those and hoping to record some of those sessions as well. And yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see where it goes, really. So all of that stuff will be put out in due course, and we'll kind of see where it goes, really. But yeah, pretty much keeping doing what I'm doing, and there's no kind of master plan for world domination as yet. Put it that way.
Well, I'm so happy that you're going to keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, I am absolutely in love with your voice. And
Thank you.
what you're doing is working. Any new thing happens, any new album, anything, or you win the international songwriting competition, get a hold of me, and you're more than welcome to come back on, Rich, anytime.
Well,
And
thank you. That's very nice to hear.
yeah, well, no, I love talking to you. And you can get Rich's music like on Spotify, everywhere you can get basically music online, as well as Baby Dylan Records, and it's babydylanrecords.co.uk. It'll be up on my website. You can click on it. It will link to Rich and his music, and you'll be able to find all kinds of stuff. And I'm just telling everybody to enjoy the 2 songs that I'm putting up, and I'm sorry, but I am so in love with Roll On Mississippi, and I think a lot of other people are going to fall in love with it too. Just your voice, period. And Rich, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on, or your evening, I should say. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I really appreciate it. It's been lovely talking to you, and yeah, like I say, thanks so much for having me on this. It's always nice to just get a chance to talk about music. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime. And thank you for joining me on Allie's Attic. Keep checking my website because you never know what kind of surprises you'll find in my attic. Cheers.